Hello and welcome to Town Meeting's TV coverage of General Elections 2026. I am Jason Lorber and I am your moderator. And I'm here with our candidates, Stephanie Mack and Alyssa Black. And that's, there they are. Surprise! Okay, so you can find all of our forums at, first I want to thank our wonderful sponsors that make this happen. Thank you so much. And you can find all our forums at cctv.org/general on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. You can also check that out where auto-generated captions are available. And if you're tuning in on YouTube, click the subscribe button to stay tuned into local democracy this election season. So we have a list of questions prepared for each of you, and you'll each have 90 seconds to answer each question. Unless the other candidate mentions your name, then you'll have an extra 30 seconds. And we also welcome you callers. If you have a question, please call us. We'll take your question as soon as possible at 802-862-3966. And before we get started with the questions, I'll offer you each 60-second opening statements. So Stephanie, why don't you go first?
Sure, thanks Jason. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being a great opponent, Alyssa. I guess I decided to run for legislature after I sold my tax and accounting practice. I sort of took a breather, and friends approached me and said, why don't you run? Because we would like somebody in our party to run. And I had to think about it, and I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. I'd like to do civic duty for my state, for my country, and I thought I'll throw my hat in the ring. Also, I started really deep diving into what was going on with legislature and the issues that were happening. So I thought I could definitely help out with my knowledge of small business and knowledge of financial reporting, that it would be helpful. I have some ideas for a program called Double Up Vermont relative to housing and infrastructure and youth being employed. And as I developed that and through campaigning, it's just been increasing my knowledge of what I'd like to produce in the legislature.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Alyssa Black.
Hi. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate this forum. So I am Representative Alyssa Black. I am just finishing my third term in the legislature. On I call it my day job, my real job. I co-own a small business in Essex Junction, an automotive repair business. And prior to that, I spent close to 30 years in healthcare administration, specifically sort of the finances of healthcare. I've served I'm finishing up my 6th year in the legislature, and I am running for re-election. I had the great honor of being named the chair of our House Healthcare Committee this past biennium. So I've done 2 years as the chair of House Healthcare, and I just feel as though first of all, we are in a healthcare crisis. Mm-hmm. We have moved a lot of legislation, and we have tried to address affordability. And on top of that, we are facing massive winds coming in from the federal government. And I really feel as though my experience, the trust I've built, the relationships I've built.
Let's talk about that. You mentioned the federal government. So one of the facts is that about a third of our state budget comes from the feds. And if Washington continues to pull back spending, how do you think Vermont should prepare for a leaner federal funding partner? And what specifically do you think should be protected first when funding choices get hard? Alyssa Black.
I want to say from the beginning, first of all, the majority of our federal funds come in through Medicaid. That is a massive portion of our state budget. And we use those dollars to fund almost our entire budget, not just Medicaid. And what the federal government has done, it's not as though they have actually made discernible cuts. They haven't done that. What they have done is they have made it very, very hard for states to spend money on Medicaid so that they're unable to draw down as many federal dollars as possible. Those are the cuts that we're seeing. They have made cuts to our provider tax, which is a tax that we have on providers that we then put into our general fund and then federally match and give it back to them so that we can give them much more than what they gave. And what they have also done is they have made these administrative burdens to basically get people off of Medicaid so that we're not spending the money. My focus, singularly focused, the next 2 years is we need to keep everyone insured as much as possible. That is a Herculean effort. And that is what we need to do. And that's what we need to do because we need to protect those federal funds.
Okay. Stephanie Mack, what would you say about the federal funding and where, what would you like to protect when funding choices get hard?
So this was a great question. I dove into it and was doing some research on it. What I looked at was that first of all, we shouldn't take all the federal money that we get and depend on it when it's taken away. So part of what I was looking at was how we plan on not having those funds available. So how do we prepare, right? The first was to map every program that lives on a federal match and to mark which ones we would keep if Vermont were to have to bear the full weight. Second would be to stop using one-time money for ongoing payroll and short-term projects because they're gone and then that money is no longer available. Third would be to hold a real reserve against federal cuts instead of spending the surplus on rate buy-downs that expire in a year. And then fourth would be to require all the agencies to bring a cut list with them and request that each state each agency have what they were intending to cut with them if they're asking for money, right? But the one thing that we should protect is our education fund because it's already with our Vermont money. So the property tax, sales tax, and meals and rooms, we already have that in a nice little nest egg. So classroom quality is a choice that we already control, and we should have state funds designated for it, so we shouldn't have to have any cuts there.
Okay, well let's talk about education spending. Vermont student enrollment has been declining while per pupil spending continues to rise. Legislators need to find ways to meet this challenge. What does a sustainable education funding model look like to you? And Stephanie Mack, why don't you go first?
Sustainable education model.
It's the seventh question.
Thank you. That would be helpful. Sure. Because there were a lot of questions that we had to look through. So sustainable education model. So we should build our system based on the number of children that we have currently, and I think our system was overexpanded, and we haven't really reeled it back in, and we've lost a number of children, pupils, basically. So one of the things that I think we should do is our pupil spending should be equal amongst all the kids, and we should shrink administration. It was really surprising to me that we had over 55 superintendents. That I looked into how many students per superintendent was in state of New Jersey, and they had 60,000 kids for one superintendent. So we should be able to shrink our model and be able to still be sustainable in the state. Other thing would be to tax incentivize. I don't know why we don't incentivize through taxes volunteers in the school system. I thought that would be a great way to get grandparents, parents back into the school system and offer them, instead of paying them a tax incentive, some sort of break that would not have to be just paid for out of pocket. And we should bring down the school districts but not completely eliminate them, like too small, but where things can be grouped together and let those districts decide what they can do instead of a top-down decision-making process. Let it be organic through the state and let locals decide.
Okay. Alyssa Black.
I did want to just add really quickly that actually our education fund is also funded by federal dollars. And in order to maintain those federal dollars, we need to be compliant. And one of the things that I've been working on is ensuring that our Agency of Education is compliant with federal guidelines so that we are able to use those funds. We use a lot of funds from the federal government in Medicaid with our Success Beyond 6 program, which is mental health services for our kids, and that we get a federal match for as well. Education spending, education reform, it's obviously a very big topic. It is incredibly complicated. It is different needs for different districts, different areas across the state. We're in Chittenden County, and it is completely different if you are in the Northeast Kingdom. So we really have to address the needs of all of our kids across this state. The thing that is most important to me is predictability. I'm very excited that we've set in motion, and through legislation we've passed in the past few years, is creating a foundation formula and ensuring that districts, taxpayers know exactly how much they have to spend. And hopefully, I know your last guest talked about CISAs, finding these sort of shared savings, and that's really what I'm interested in.
Okay, well, when we think about revenue and taxation, or question number 5, there are many cost
you keep flipping
drivers.
around.
No, I flip around.
You keep flipping around, Jason.
Yeah, but your bird does not mean to be flipped. Okay, there are many cost drivers on the Vermont budget. Some lawmakers have proposed new taxes and on higher earners, second homes, large asset transfers, and others want to hold the line and find ways to decrease costs. Alyssa Black, what new revenue streams or cost savings would you like to see?
Well, one thing that a lot of states are doing, and I've talked to a lot of people around other state legislatures, and we're all struggling with this. All 50 states are struggling with this. One thing that I am incredibly interested in ensuring is that we are actually decoupling our tax laws from federal tax laws, because most states sort of follow federal tax law. So every single time the federal government does something, it affects our state revenue. We did have a proposal on the table this past year for increasing the tax bracket for earned income over $500,000, and I was in favor of that. This is a tax bracket that has seen massive cuts in their federal taxes, and therefore the state is seeing cuts in our taxes from this bracket. And I actually put forward some amendments to that bill that House Ways and Means took up to be able to funnel those back into where the federal government has cut from health care, and put that money back into Vermonters' pockets.
Thank you. Stephanie Mack.
Sure. So I was digging into this topic, and what I was finding, and also speaking with voters as I was talking to them, doing door knocking, a couple of them were mentioning, and it made sense to me, rather than inventing new tax and trying to tax people more, why don't we collect the tax that's already on the books? So staff and audits and collection should really come first. Are we really collecting all the money that we can? And by the way, Ivar Kronick is going for state auditor, and that guy is the real deal. Like he's the dude that we want to vote for. So we want to find what's owed, right? Example, like, is Connecticut's audits bring in the order of like $185 million a year? So has Vermont gone to the extent of making sure that all that money is being collected that's on the table, cutting costs before adding new tax streams, finishing education restructuring, build housing so that the grand list grows and we have more people paying taxes to spread that burden out, and tightening Medicaid integrity, and not filling the backfill on every expired grant and thinking that we have to keep going on those grant items.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about, there's so many bills that are passed. Last year, the citizen legislature passed close to 250 bills in the last biennium, in the last 2 years, covering a whole bunch of different topics. What are 2 bills that you want to see discussed and passed in the next 2 years? Stephanie Mack.
So the 2 bills that I was looking for was, I am trying to put together this plan called Double Up Vermont, and it's basically integrating the youth or young folks that aren't really getting employed, housing that has developers with vacant housing, as well as the need for housing that's in the right income bracket for new home buyers, and also the need for construction companies that I hear friends of mine call up, and because I own the accounting practice, I still have friends that are in the construction industry, and they'll say, I can't find like a bucket loader. I can't find people, like my project's on hold because I can't find someone trained to do this work. So I'd love to see a program that would basically integrate all of this. It would scale down as people earn more money. So say for example, the person that needs housing would get a voucher, and they would have to stay employed in order to retain those funds. And as they stay employed, it scales down, and it's more of a graduate program rather than a handout with no goals in mind, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. Alyssa Black. 2 bills.
2 bills, just other than just sort of responding and addressing what we have coming at us from the federal government in the next couple of years. 2 bills that I am committed to working on and hopefully moving the needle on. I did a bill last year around private equity in healthcare, and legislation started out very comprehensive legislation, ended up being sort of a ban on the corporate practice of medicine, and I am really interested in going back into that. We know that private equity in healthcare increases costs, decreases quality, leads to death, frankly. Vermont cannot afford to do that now. The other bill that I have committed to working on, I've been working on it throughout the summer, is universal primary care. We cannot do single payer healthcare in this state. It's just not possible with our federal partners. However, we can do universal primary care, and we can do it affordably. We can do it probably for less money than what we spend right now on primary care. And I am committed to, over the next 2 years, working on setting up the structure in place to ensure that every single Vermonter has access to high quality, universal primary care at no cost.
Homelessness and emergency shelter. The legislature passed and the governor signed H 938, restructuring Vermont's shelter system into a tiered continuum and scaling back the motor voucher program. That was backed with about an $83 million allocation. How does H 938 does H 938 do enough to put Vermont on a path to reducing homelessness? Alyssa Black.
Well, this is such a complicated issue. It's not one bill. Anyone who tells you this is what we need to be doing, they frankly don't know what they're talking about. this is a multi-pronged problem. I think that the bill that ultimately we ended up with set up a structure to ensure that we are addressing the immediate needs, that we are trying to provide these wraparound services, that we are ensuring that people don't become homeless. But, you know, from my standpoint and the things that I am working on, I know that homelessness and housing insecurity, a lot of that is co-occurring with mental health and substance use disorder. And I am intent on working to ensure that people have the resources that they need, that they have the supports they need. Because housing someone is a short-term fix. Unless you're addressing all their needs, then it is just a recurring issue over and over and over again.
Thank you. Stephanie Mack.
I do agree with Alyssa that unless you're addressing their mental health and offering a merit-based system, just throwing money into a program isn't going to be helpful. What we're looking for, and I think what our state needs to look for, is more of a recovery program with a tiered structure of success. Right? Like if you're coming in as a drug user, you're just safe, we're trying to keep you alive. Then the next tier is if you're out of using the drugs but you need training, some kind of job training, you need mental health coaching, you need to learn how to keep those jobs. There's a large component of mental health that needs to be happening, and there needs to be a movement of getting these folks away from the drugs that are available. So if they're agreeing to get well and get healthy, you got to move them out of being right next to the dealer, right? Like they can't be in the same spot where the drugs are just happening. So I think we need to look at more of a program that has a place where people can go rather than just leaving them right where all the bad stuff is happening. That way they can be more successful in their transition out of that situation. And it has to tie into housing, mental health, job training, and some sort of merit-based system to help them move out of their situation.
Thank you. Now, we shift over to the very exciting lightning round. There should be like a lightning bolt. Can we get a sound effect?
Yeah.
These are so lightning. I didn't even write them down, so you can choose whichever number you want.
Thank you. Well, I think we're going to get to them all. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to limit it to a 10-second response. Okay? Stephanie Mack. Schools free of cell phones?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we did that bill in the legislature a couple of years ago, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay. What about additional tax on second homes in Vermont?
Yes.
No.
Okay. What about building a facility in Vermont to house people found incompetent to stand trial for criminal charges?
Yes. And that, I guess the 10-second would be that just because they're incompetent to stand trial doesn't mean they're safe.
Okay.
This is an issue I've worked on. I cannot give you a yes or no. We do need a forensic facility to house a very, very small population of people. However, I'm not sure you use the word build. I'm not sure we need to build a facility. I'm not sure Vermonters can afford that.
Okay. Well, we do have a caller, so let's go to the caller.
Oh, we're not.
Oh,
We have one coming in.
we have one coming in, but not yet. So while we're waiting for that caller,
More lightning.
very exciting, more lightning, all right. Should Vermont legislate that companies be required to obtain permission before selling your personal data?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're good there.
We've been working on that.
All right, what about ranked choice voting in statewide elections?
myself?
Yeah.
I say no because it is too hard to explain to constituents and voters, honestly, and it would be very confusing. It's hard enough to get people in the door to vote, let alone try and explain ranked choice voting.
Thank you, Stephanie Mack. Alyssa?
I am no. Our elections work very well in this state, and I do not feel any need to go to ranked choice voting.
Okay. Is the caller there? No, the caller's not there. You know, we try to get you to call, but you don't call. I'll call you. All right. Should Vermont give municipalities home rule authority by default?
No, with the caveat, I really do believe that the legislature should, because we are a Dillon's Law state, I do think that the legislature should be verifying and approving. However, I think that the legislature should be focused on whether or not there are constitutional issues around this, and not making policy decisions. I think that's what we've seen, is that the legislature is making policy decisions for individual communities, and that I do not think should be. So,
Stephanie Mack.
I think, yes, we should be willing to try it and maybe pull back if it's not working out well.
Okay. Well, there isn't. Oh, and now there's the caller. Okay, so we're going to take the call. Hello and welcome. Yes, do you have a question?
Is that the legislature is making policy decisions for individual communities, and that I do not think.
All right. So Stephanie Mack.
I think, yes, we should be willing to try it.
That's just a replay.
you sounded great.
Just a replay.
Did we? Okay. Thanks for calling. I think that was me. All right.
Didn't you sound terrific?
We sounded amazing.
You never get to hear yourself back.
You know, sometimes it's a curse. So, and sometimes it's a blessing. Let's give you 60 seconds for your closing statements. What else would you like the voters to know? Alyssa Black.
I've spent 6 years in the legislature. I have listened, learned, built relationships. I feel as though I am a trusted and collaborative person in the legislature. I have done some really important work over the last few years. I have introduced and had enacted major gun safety legislation in the state. I have worked on reference-based pricing, hospital stabilization. I have my bill last year, Act 55, is credited with removing $200 million this year out of hospitals that is going straight back into Vermonters' pockets. I have worked on administrative burdens for physicians. I have so much more to do. And I really would like to get back there, because we are facing some really challenging times ahead. And I think I'm the person that we need there.
Thank you. Stephanie Mack.
Sure. Sometimes it's hard to toot your own horn, you know? You get in there, it's like, why am I doing this? I think from talking to voters, what I'm really hearing is echoes why I'm doing this. And over I hear that Vermont's gone too far one direction, and it needs to come back to middle ground. And I feel that voting for myself will bring it back to the middle ground, that door after door that I've been talking to people, is the direction that we need to go, is back, kind of bring the dial back. Also, I just feel that folks need to remember that getting out to vote is a really huge thing. A lot of people forget about the day, I don't know, don't put on a timer, don't take time off of work to go. And it saddens me that we live in America and this is like our thing that we get to do, and we have folks that aren't getting out to vote. So I guess voting for myself is going to be something that will bring that dial and that needle back to a neutral position. And also, I think it'll be really great to get down to legislature and Montpelier. So I want to try. Like, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring. I really want to do this. I'm a very determined individual, and I think that you'd see a lot of success if you put me in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie Mack and Alyssa Black. My name's not Jack, but that would be awesome if it just all
Like
rhymed
Jack.
together. So that concludes our forum with these two candidates. Thank you for tuning in to Town Meetings TV's ongoing coverage of local candidates, budgets, and ballot items. You can find this and many more forums at cctv.org/general or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. Don't forget to cast your ballot on Election Day, on or before November 3rd, and then come tune in to Town Meeting TV's election results recap that starts at 7:30 p.m. Contact your local clerk to find out how to get a ballot and register to vote. And in Vermont, you can register the same day as Election Day. So thank you for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV. I'm Jason Lorber. Thank you to candidates Alyssa Black and Stephanie Mack.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
You bet.